Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Bricks and Bleachers podcast. All things Chicago Cubs in under 10 minutes. Tough night last night for the Cubs in Cincinnati. We will recap that. MLB trade deadline is now behind us. Get you up to speed on Cubs moves and offer a look ahead at the final 2 months of the regular season. Cubs with another disappointment last night in Cincinnati, a 6-3 loss to the Reds. Cubs hoping to avoid a sweep tonight after dropping the first 2 games of this 3-game series. Justin Steele, the Cubs ace, just did not have it last night. Walking the first batter, he faced 3 walks in the first 2 innings, and the Reds pounced. 5-0 Reds after 2. Steele did make it through 5 innings, 7 strikeouts, and 4 walks. Little support from the Cubs offense. And adding salt to that wound is the fact it was a bullpen game for the Reds. Frankie Montas was announced early on Monday as the Reds' Tuesday night starter, but the Reds traded him to the Brewers, and they didn't have anyone else they could slot in. So it was a bullpen game. It did not matter. Highlight for the Cubs Tuesday night was the return of Cody Bellinger, a 2-run home run in the 6th inning. Cubs tacked on 1 more in the 7th. It was 5-3 at that point before Ethan Roberts gave up a run in the 8th. 6-3, the Reds win. Cubs manager Craig Counsell shaking up the lineup. Cody Bellinger, his first action in roughly 3 weeks after taking a pitch to a hand in Baltimore. He's able to bat, but still not able to field just yet. Also saw the Cubs debut of Isaac Paredes. Cubs acquired Paredes on Sunday from Tampa Bay in exchange for Christopher Morel, Hunter Biggie, and Ty Johnson. Morel given the chance to be the Cubs' everyday third baseman. That was known early this spring, but that experiment just did not pan out. Not great defensively, with great struggles at the plate. Paredes is a definite upgrade. He was an all-star this year with the Rays, dependable fielder, some power at the plate, under contract for a while. And it's a reunion as well. Paredes came up with the Cubs about a decade ago. He was part of the Cubs draft class in either 2014 or 2015. He was moved to Detroit at the deadline in 2017 as he was working through the minors. Perhaps a change of scenery will get Christopher Morel on the right track. Perhaps he can get things going for the Rays. He certainly has talent, certainly is very likable, high energy, but was definitely disappointing on the field for the Cubs this season. Hunter Biggie, a reliever who only just recently made his big league debut. I think that came in Baltimore about 3 weeks ago. And Ty Johnson is a prospect still working through the minors. That's one deal made by the Cubs front office. Another over the weekend brought the Cubs a reliever named Nate Pearson, a power pitcher with some command issues. Highly touted prospect as he came through the Toronto farm system. Originally a starter, now in the bullpen. Cubs gave up a couple prospects nowhere close to the majors, so time will tell how that trade pans out. And then yesterday, a couple hours before the deadline, Mark Leiter Jr. sent to the Yankees in exchange for a couple minor league prospects. So you'd think a team in last place in the National League Central with a slim chance of making the postseason would be eager to sell, but that's not the case. Jed Hoyer says he's interested in solidifying the Cubs roster for 2025 and beyond. Let's take a look at that real quick. This 24 Cubs roster, very similar to that of 1 year ago, but big performance declines this season at third base, from the catcher position, and also at closer. Addition of Paredes addresses third, but a catcher and closer both need to be addressed in the offseason. Cubs offense, first 25 games of the season, looked really good. A lot of hits, a lot of runs, ability to move runners in scoring position, doing all the things you would expect from a winning team. But it wasn't sustainable. Bullpen also struggled early. In fact, at one point, leading the league in blown saves. Otherwise, bullpen has come together to be pretty effective. Starting rotation has performed well when healthy. But ultimately, looking at 2025, it's a numbers game. Cubs have too many position players under contract for the foreseeable future. They have too many prospects working their way through the system to properly accommodate everyone. You only have 9 slots in the batting lineup. Front office, I think, is going to need to find ways to package prospects with an existing contract or two and receive a definite upgrade in return. Also, Cody Bellinger is an unknown. He's got an option for 25. Unsure if he's played well enough to have much value in the open market. Either way, I would play him in right field the rest of this season. Seiya Suzuki has really struggled with fielding. Let Seiya DH the rest of 2024. Have Cody in right most days, PCA in center. Cody can give PCA days off in center if need be, or even cover first base in place of Michael Busch. Time for our This and That segment. News and notes from around Major League Baseball. A flurry of moves ahead of the trade deadline yesterday. Can't recap them all. A couple highlights include Jack Flaherty going to the Dodgers. O's add Eloy Jimenez. And the Padres with multiple additions to their bullpen. Christopher Morel made his Rays debut last night and homered in his second at-bat. Interesting note, Rizzo, Baez, Bryant, all traded by the Cubs at the deadline in 21. Each of them homered in their first game with their new team. So Christopher Morel joins an interesting club there with that feat. Over the weekend, Blake Snell hurled a phenomenal game for the San Francisco Giants, recording 15 of his 18 outs via strikeout. That's the highest strikeout percentage by any pitcher in Major League Baseball history, with a minimum of 6 innings pitched. Big movers in the standings in recent weeks. The Mets were 10 games back of the Braves in late May. They overtook the Braves a few days ago for the top National League wildcard spot. I believe the Braves have since hurdled them again, but that's quite a move by the Mets. Perhaps even more impressive is what's taken place in the American League. Seattle with a 10-game lead in the American League West in mid-June. Less than 5 weeks later, the Astros had overtaken them to claim first place. Unbelievable. And with that said, there's always a chance the Cubs could make their own big move and position themselves for October baseball. But that doesn't look likely at this point. They've got a long way to go as they are currently in the basement of the National League Central, 51-58, 11 games back of division-leading Milwaukee, 6 back of the third wild card spot, and Fangraphs currently shows the Cubs with a 3.5% chance of making the postseason. Tonight, it's the Cubs and Reds squaring off in the series finale in Cincinnati, 7:10 Eastern. Kyle Hendricks and Nick Lodolo, the starting pitching matchup. Lodolo with a nice run this year for the Reds. Kyle Hendricks has looked good at times, but has been inconsistent. In fact, his last 2 starts, not great, giving up 9 earned runs combined over 10 innings. So we'll see which Kyle Hendricks shows up for the Cubs as they try to avoid the series sweep. If you don't have Marquee Sports Network, it's okay. Catch the game tonight on MLB Network. Cubs head home for a 4-game set with the Cardinals this weekend, beginning tomorrow. Saturday's game on Fox, followed by Sunday Night Baseball on ESPN. 53 games remain for the Cubs. That is 1/3 of this season. I'd say it's the most frustrating season we've seen in quite some time, perhaps in like 20 years or so. Because that 04 team was pretty frustrating. Just as I was about to throw in the towel on this year's team, they go to Baltimore and win 3 games convincingly. So it's like, okay, maybe there's still a shot. They can get it together. And they haven't been able to maintain that energy against teams that are definitely not nearly as good as the Orioles. So bad breaks and no offense, and the Cubs are just a few games below 500. I guess it could be far worse if breaks go their way over the next 2 months and or the offense gets going with Bellinger and Paredes in the lineup. Maybe it gets interesting. Subscribe so you don't miss our next episode on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, and more, wherever you get your podcasts. All things Chicago Cubs in under 10 minutes. This is the Bricks and Bleachers Podcast.